Welcome to Community and Unity, Alaska Public Media's Community Dialogue series. I'm Ann Hillman. Alaska has some of the nation's most diverse neighborhoods, with people hailing from all over the world. But what does that really mean to our community? Today, we're talking about immigration and integration. Today, my guests are Robin Bronin, the Executive Director of the Alaska Institute for Justice, Dulce Whited, who is a former immigrant community outreach advocate, Lucy Hansen is the president of the Polynesian Association of Alaska, and Marie Husa is the president of the Alaska Federation of Filipino Americans. Thank you all very much for being here. We also have a live studio audience, and the goal tonight is to have a conversation, not just to listen. So we're hoping that the community chimes in with their questions, with your stories, with your own experiences. So let's jump straight into the conversation. Robin, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we're understanding different terms that might come up tonight. So I was wondering if you could explain a little bit the difference between what it means to be an immigrant versus a refugee, and then also talk a little bit about the overall picture of immigration in Alaska.
Sure. So immigrant is the term to refer to all people who were not born in the United States. And if you're not born in the United States, there are a variety of ways for people to get their immigration documents. And one of those ways is if you are fleeing persecution or torture, which is the international definition of a refugee. So all refugees are people who are fleeing persecution or torture in their country of origin, and they obtain their immigration status prior to entry into the United States. So immigrant is the broader category, and refugees are the narrower category. And in regard to Alaska, what I can tell you is that our office works with approximately 850 Alaskans every year. They come from all over the world and live in all parts of our state and are amazing people in our community.
All right. And Dulce, you used to work with the immigrants in this community. You still do, as an outreach advocate.
Yes.
Can you tell me a few of the major concerns people have when adjusting to life here in Alaska?
Well, as soon as just they getting here, you know, it's different cases, and you know, basically it's just the weather, but also about the language. The languages what you have in here different. You know, some people, for example, Latin people, they just come speaking Spanish. They don't speak English, and you know, it's just hard on them sometimes for adjust to the situation. For example, speak English, and they need an interpreter. So that's why also I just have the Language Interpreter Center. And they start to educate in the system for that, for have some finish that barrier in that and continue to the adaptation for this better, for all the life, make the life easy. Besides, the life is hard. So now you're getting here because probably you don't bring your family. And probably you don't bring, you know, your people. So it's hard for some parts. So you have to be, you have to support people in here.
Do people typically immigrate alone by themselves without families? Or
Sometimes they immigrate alone because, you know, they come to check. Well, they come to looking for a job, for better life, for family. So sometimes they just come for the father to come first of all to work, and later they just have to bring the family with the time and different cases what they have. It's just hard for them, you know, spend holidays by themselves. It's hard to them, just basically just start with a new whole world around you. It's like just basically, it's just adaptation to all that, adaptation to the language, adaptation to the people, the new people, to meet new people, make a friends.
Are you speaking from personal experience as well?
Just in global, you know, I just thinking, I mean, when I just moved here, I just was by myself, so I can tell you it was kind of a little bit hard, homesick sometimes. You know, it's you have to support like as we are right here now, and we just have many years in here. Now we need to support people who just move in here because it's hard. It's hard. It's still for us, you know, but we need to support each other.
Maria, I'd like to jump to you. Your organization has been around for a good number of years, and you work with the Filipino community, which is the largest ethnic community in Alaska. What sorts of things do you do to support the community?
Well, I want to point out too that the organization that I belong to, it's the Alaska Federation of Filipino Americans. It's just one of the 3 or 4 Filipino organizations. So I think it's easy to think that we're Filipinos and we know each other, and we don't. It's really, there's a whole lot of other organizations, and I wish there were more of them here, because I hate for people to think that I represent all of them. I don't. We have just as varied ideas and opinions as everybody else. So
Yeah, I understand what you mean. It's hard.
it is, yes. So, so what's your question? What kinds of things?
So what kind of things does...
to support our
Because Dulce
community?
was saying that people move up here and they don't have support, so...
Exactly. Well, usually we have families. I moved in here for personal experience to share that. I moved here with my family, so I have that support. And we usually do. If most Filipinos, you'd see there would be several generations in one home. So we do have a lot of that support. And then with just the Filipino functions, I think we do have, with our organization, we have monthly meetings and we have our own activities. And I think that's how we support each other through the mission of our organization, to promote and preserve our culture. We have a dance group, and they perform cultural dances all over town, and then to teach the youngsters of these dances to make them stay connected with that culture. Yes.
And Lucy, you're the president of the Polynesian Association of Alaska. And reading your mission statement and reading on your website, it talks a lot about your focus on maintaining Polynesian culture and values. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those values are?
Sure. This past school year, we had started a new program which was called Samoan Heritage, and we did it through Wonder Park Elementary, and then also with Fairview Elementary. We had it back in 2005 when we did it on a Saturday, but it was really difficult with the fundings. But what we as Polynesian Association of Alaska, we try to instill in our kids, their language, because we know that a lot of them, they were born in America, and they did not have the experience of the real teaching of the real language, the real Samoan language, and the respect that comes with it. We notice that a lot of our youth that are born in America, because it's a busy environment and a busy way of life of our parents have to work, 2 jobs, so they don't have the time to teach our kids or their kids the better way to respect and to take on a task and follow up with it. So I was born in American Samoa, and I grew up in an environment that it was in a little island and in a little village, and a village can take care of a little child. Everybody in the village, it comes together when there's something happen in a village. All the chiefs and all the families, they come together and they share thoughts and they share opinions on how to better a small village that we live in. So here we are in the big village, is what we call it, the state of Alaska, and there's more besides our own culture that we have to look at. So a lot of things, different things that our kids see each day and learn wherever they go, from friends, from education, from TV, so they forget, how important the culture is and how important our language is. Samoan language and culture is really a respectful language and a culture, because I was brought into. And And I know how very important it is to respect your elders and not to say anything back. And compared to nowadays, you know, a lot of our kids don't have that. So bringing and instill the language in our youth nowadays, not just our Polynesian youth that we taught through those schools, but we also have diverse students that attend our class and learn some of our language, you know, some of the Samoan language. So I think having them know their roots and know the respectful way of the culture, I think it's important to the kids. And besides that, we do yearly Polynesian Culture Flag Day, and this year will be our 11th year since we started the Polynesian Culture Flag Day in 2005. So the Flag Day is to bring in all the Polynesian culture that we have here in Alaska, all the community. Besides just the Polynesian community, we share it and open it out to the diversity community of Anchorage. And last year was our 10-year anniversary, and we had celebrated with the Anchorage Centennial. And I tell you that it was a good crowd of people that come in and learn all islands of the Pacific. You know, they come together and provide culture dances and culture arts and craft, you know, language, you know, in different Polynesian language. So yes.
When you were speaking earlier, you kept talking about respect and
Yes.
and getting your children. And Marie, you and Dulce are both nodding profusely. Is that an issue that you're seeing amongst kids in your own communities? I mean, in the community as a whole?
Go ahead.
Well, there is a difference. It's, and I have to say my husband is Caucasian, so a lot of things that they do, I see it as, the things some of the kids say and do, it's just different from how we're raising them, that I'm just thinking, that is never gonna fly if your grandma is here. You know, it's just not the way. So that's challenging to me now, raising my kids here. They were born here, that I always have to ask myself, am I putting those values that maybe, is it my parenting style, or they're growing up in a different world, so it's not all that I can adopt. There's certain, you still have to have respect, but it's, I welcome them to at least challenge. That's a different parenting style that I think in some Filipino homes may not be as welcomed. So I have to change my thinking on that, you know what, I have to decide what kind of parent do I want to be. And it's not always that the kids, right, because they don't understand where I'm coming from. So sometimes, you know, a lot of times I have to tell them that it's like, no, you don't get to do that because I said so. And that's just something I always said I won't say to my kids, but guess what? You give up. You give up. Because in the Philippines, that would fly. It's just like, I said so, you're not doing that. And just, you know, staying out late or anything like that, that it's just really never, you don't do with your elders. With my grandma, you know, if they're there, you just don't talk. But I kind of had to adapt and just, they're growing up in a different world. Like I said, they're not in the Philippines. But yeah, the respect with elders, we have different traditions that with Filipinos, you don't call your elders with their first names. There's always a name. Like my older sister, her name is Eileen, but you just don't call her Eileen. She's my ate Eileen. So everybody else who's older than you, you just call ate or tita, which is auntie. Or there's other words depending on where you're from, like the Visayan community that's in the south, you say manong or manang, but not their first names. So to me, that was a struggle because guess what? I enrolled my kids at Polaris, which is an optional school here, where they call their teachers by their first name. And that was a real struggle for me. I was like, really? Really? How does that work? We liked the philosophy of what we've heard there. That was Polaris, or Chugach optional was where we put our kids. But I really had a hard time. I was very skeptical. How does this work? How do I explain this to my mother? And after a while, and you know, I just had full faith. I knew people whose kids went there, and so we toured the school. We did research the school. We really stayed there and got to know we checked it out, but and I love the school, but that was the hardest thing. I was like, how does it happen? How do you do that? It's never something that from my culture, you never do that. Your teacher, your principal, you're calling her by your first name, seriously? But it works. It's just a different thinking that was so different from mine that I had to adapt to, but it works. So it's
It works.
exactly.
Yeah, well, and I think so part of the pieces is like, so what you're hearing from Marie and Lucy is this ability to make choices about how your children are being integrated into the school district. And I think one of the pieces when new families come into our community is making sure that interpreters are provided for parents who may not speak English. So parents who are limited English proficient have that same option of making choices, because I would say in like my experience of doing the work that I've done, that when children are relied on as the bilingual communicator, that is one of the primary ways that you break the family relationship, the power dynamics within that family, because that child is then given a lot of control over the conversations that happen within that family, especially with the school district.
And I can tap back on when you said about the children would take control over the family, because my family in the Samoan culture, the man is always the head of the family, and then the mother, and then the kids. So what it says in a family, the man will make a decision for the whole family, unless you have a chief in the family, if I live in the island, I would have a chief in my little family, and then it passed down to the father, and then the mother, and then the children. So the children usually have less to say about a decision in a family. In Samoa, a father figure will always be the leader of the family. Now, compared to us out here, when I'm also married to a Caucasian man, and had my mother move in and live with us. So that was a very interesting family, relationship. And my mom said, "Don't marry the Caucasian man." And I said, "Why? But he loves me." And then Mom said, "But he will not understand my culture." I said, "Mom, it'll take time. You have to understand his culture, and he has to understand your culture." And we are in a melting pot, a little diverse family, because I move in, I have my sister's kids, and have my daughter, and then I have our daughter, and then I have his kids. So it was like theirs, ours, his, and and mine. And so, and then we have our mom, my mom. So it took a while. Every morning she would wake up and have coffee with my husband, and Mom don't speak English that well. And she tried to explain her culture, what she does every day, every morning, when she was little, growing up, how she was raising her kids, to my husband. And my husband would tell me that Mom said this and that. Is that right? Because, he tried to understand what Mom is trying. So I explained to him how my life was, how I was brought up with my mom, back in a little village, in a little island. And so he understand as days goes by, and they become most of the bestest friend, and when Mom passed on in 2007, he really misses her.
Aww.
It's like, it was just brought tears in my eyes, just thinking that she didn't want him at the first place, but then they ended up being bestest friend ever. And what Marie was saying about trying to make my mom understand the American life, when my kids were born, and my mom said, "Okay, so you don't have your daughter go spend the night at her friend's house for like a weekend over or sleep over, okay?" So I said, "Why, Mom? You don't do that in our culture. It's because you never know what could happen over there. I trust, my kids and her friends, because they're just neighbors. We introduce ourselves to their parents. And so I trust the neighbor parents, that they're going to watch over my kids." So I tried to explain that to my mom, and Mom said, "That's the beginning of all the bad things that's going to happen to your kids." And I think if I think back about what my mom was saying that time, I think that she was right. You know, I shouldn't even introduce that kind of life because they will learn from, you know, their neighbor friends, things that their neighbor friends' parents don't even know what their kids are doing. You know, when they get together, they can get in trouble and do things that their parents don't even know, you know. So, but if they stay at home with their parents, there's time that we have to teach them how to read the Bible, read the book, you know, do something together or play cards or something like that. And, but I did the American way of life, you know, to sometimes I think to myself that I did it because I just wanted it out of my thoughts, you know, make it easy for me to do what I want to do, you know, to keep the kids, to let them go so that way I can do what I want to do. But that is not the way that I should have taken care of it in the beginnings. Because when they grow up, they will say to me, Mom, why, if I stop them from going when they're teen, they're saying, well, you let us go, you know, this time. Why you can't let us go now, you know? And I heard that from my kids, and I heard that. And, you know, we cannot, you know, think that, you know, our kids are learning everything that, you know, we cannot do that. It's different life.
For those who are just joining us, this is Community and Unity, a community dialogue talking about immigration and integration. And I'd like to invite an audience member. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Josie Thuya, and it's come up a couple times that immigrants need help learning English when they come to Alaska. And so I'm wondering, the people in your communities and the people that you work with, where are they going for those services? And do you feel that what's provided in Anchorage is working and is enough and is affordable? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I know some of our Samoan communities, some individual that really do need to learn English. They are signing up and going through the Alaska Leadership Program, and that's on it's on DeBar and Baga. So some of them, they go there, and I know there's quite a diversity individuals that go there and learn English. So that's a good program, and some of them, I believe that they learn from their kids, you know, at home, because they have a busy life, so they do what they can to try to learn English.
Also, I hear about in the church also, well, for Latin people in the church, they give you some classes over there too. And the Lady Guadalupe, they give you some classes, I believe so. And also, I think for the kids, they learning a lot for the kids. Also, I saw a few people, they're using the kids sometimes for translate, like to tell them what I want to say, for example, to the bank or something like that. But, you know, it's sometimes hard for the kids too. So I think like parents, they don't speak English. They need to use a special translator for that, because sometimes it's hard for kids. Listen, going to the doctor, tell what happens with me, and it's hard for kids, you know. That's why they need to provide a special interpreter for that, because some things like the kids they're just little, they just don't need to listen much of the time.
So increased language access would
Yes.
really help out.
Yes.
And Robin, I know that's one of your big priorities. Is your organization doing anything to increase that? I know the municipality is trying to increase it.
Yeah, well, we started the Language Interpreter Center in 2007, and Lucy is one of the interpreters. The Rasmussen Foundation has been really generous in supporting the work of the Language Interpreter Center. So we've trained, I think now 400 bilingual Alaskans speaking 42 languages. And the interpreters who are trained are then available to the community through a referral process to provide that interpretation that Dulce was talking about. And it really is one of the most important pieces in regard to making sure that everyone in our community has access to all the information in our community. It is their right as living here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say that in the Philippines, we were under American occupation for a long time. So we speak English, but it's still, there's a cultural interpretation there that even if you speak English, it doesn't mean you can integrate as soon as you step here. Our textbooks are in English. I think I've been here 30 years now, so I think there's been a change in that, because back in '86 when I left, all the government documents and a lot of business was done in English, but I think there's been a movement since then to change that to Tagalog, at least one of the languages in the Philippines. But I don't know of any, but like I said, we're a big population, so I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think people rely on family to interpret those, to be the interpreters, translators, because even during one of our organization's meeting, I invited somebody from the state's Homeland Security or Emergency Preparedness to do just right after that big January earthquake. So I thought our next meeting I'll invite somebody, because like, what do we do? Does our community know what to do? So I invited somebody to present about that. And I found that during that, of course, it was an English presentation. And what I had to do, and some of the other members were, because it's English, it's a Western way of presentation, that I had to at least interrupt him as he went on to explain, why is this important? Why is he saying? So it's not just literally interpreting the language, the presentation. There has to be that other explanation of where's it coming from, the background, the context. So I think we have a lot of brochures translated. You know, I'm not really a big fan. It's personal opinion. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's hard to just read that without explaining, like maybe a service you're offering. There has to be a background on what is your department, it's just hard to really interpret the Western brochure to make it in English, and we think it will help. I think we need, does that make sense? I think we need more.
Like, it's not explaining the whole system, it's just kind of this surface tool that people can use.
Right, because I think, you know, you have a brochure that you want to advertise a program you have, and there it is, or maybe an event or something, but there needs looking at it from somebody who wasn't here, who doesn't know maybe about the agency or what you do, how does this relate to me? There has to be, it's more than, more background, more than just translating word per word of what that brochure says.
You need genuine context.
There has, exactly, you have to have the context, but going back to where do they learn English, I think it's more family, because it's, I don't know, it's hard. When I was here, I was afraid to say, oh, I don't understand you. I worked at McDonald's when I was 16, my first job here, I loved it, but nobody told me about accents. I thought I knew English.
Yeah.
And then people it's from the South, I'm
it
like,
happens to me. I was in the airport, like,
I know.
they don't get it. Okay, just number one, probably.
I have no clue. I was taking orders, and it's like I said, I spoke English. I thought I had okay English to get along, but oh boy, I was wrong. It's like, it's just the speed, the accents, like what?
Yeah, the accent
Slow
was like,
down.
and I'm like, sometimes they speak slang too, and you're like, let me check my dictionary. It's not in there. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what he's saying. One more thing, I just like to say, now we're here and we have kids in America. We have Spanish, Spanish, and now we speak English. So many people, they start to thinking, how is it gonna be home? How I'm gonna talk to my child in home? English, what? Well, I invite them to speak both languages. Because what? Because in the future, they are going to be more flexible, more open, you know, help people, help more the community, help each other, you know. Some people, they don't want to teach them their native language. I don't understand, but they have, I respect that, but I just invite them to just basically continue that culture and continue your culture also. I mean, we celebrate Day of the Dead, and you know, here's Halloween, but you have to explain your kid why we celebrate Day of the Dead in Mexico, and what exactly means. You know, culture like that we need to pass on in our kids too. I mean, I've been dealing with my child because he's just 3 years old, and they're asking me, oh, he's going to speak English or Spanish? I say both. So, okay, well, it's going to take him more longer to speak. It's okay. It's be fine. It will be fine.
I say guilty. I didn't teach my kids Tagalog, which now I try not to regret anything. But, you know, would I have done any different? A young parent, I'm already worried. How do I raise a kid in America? I don't know what lullabies, what books, kids, how do you do that? I'm already struggling with that. Add to that teaching them Tagalog as a young parent, a new parent, as like, oh, too much things, some things had to go, and that was one. And now my 16-year-old tells me, Mom, why didn't you teach me? It's like, well, maybe when you have a baby, you'll know.
It's too much.
I mean, I'm married with a Caucasian guy, and he speaks English, I speak Spanish. So sometimes it's like, for example, my son say, Mama, I want agua. And like, okay, well, it's good. He's learning. They learning a little bit by little. So that's good. That's good. I just invite parents to just give it culture, give it the tools, I mean, for the kids.
Hi, my name is Itzel Zagal. I'm from Mexico, and in that same line, I feel like Alaska and in general in the United States, there needs to be more image about the people that looks different, of the idea what American people look like. I as well, I'm a mother, and I do what Dulce just mentioned. You know, I try to speak both language and try to explain my culture, but it's hard to do that when in television or in the public places there is no image like us, like somebody that looks like his mom or like him, and like it doesn't matter if we're professionals or not, but it's just like we are put in a box, and that box means like, for example, on the Hollywood movies, we are always the cleaning lady, or this doesn't matter if I write poetry or if my sister is lawyer, wherever, it doesn't matter because you are always in a box. And when you try to explain your son or your family or your friends, it's kind of hard to feel authorized to be more than that. And it's almost like you have to justify your presence here. It doesn't matter if you're here with papers or not papers, or with, like, you know, like you were explaining about the refugee status, people fleeing for saving their lives or something like that. And you have to always justify your presence. And your son doesn't look like the typical American. I almost feel like he will have to justify and feel authorized to be here. And so I feel like we need to have more books that tell our stories, and with people that looks like our kids, like everybody, like the other kids, and you know, all the cultures, and not only that box. And we need to have television that you know, brings people that we are living here that looks like everybody, not just like, you know, Caucasian or. Anyways, that was my comment.
What do you think we could do here locally in Anchorage to try to expose people to the huge diversity of cultures here? And I'd love suggestions from all of you, but
from my personal experience, I feel like the arts are a good place to start, and especially when that art comes to the streets. They're not in the museum where we had to pay an entrance, or the working class hardly had, you know, access to like bring the you know, like in Mexico we have this the murals, and you know, paint the streets with the diversity that this city has, with the richness of that, and publish books that create programs. And I love this forum and the idea of this, because it really gives a voice for all those communities that are being, you know, they don't have the space. It's not that they've been silenced, but it's hard to find the space to make it public.
so we need more spaces where people can express themselves and feel comfortable expressing that they aren't just a stereotype.
Yeah, to open that, to really let people flourish and give their best. because that's what we came from. Like either we are immigrants for work, for better, better life, or if we are refugees to several life. I think we are here to make our life better, but as well to participate in the community. If this community, has that welcoming environment.
So I would encourage people to run for political office, because that's the way that community can change and be more representative of everybody who lives here. So it's really important that we have more representation from the diversity of our community in our local assembly, our state legislature, because that is one of the ways that things can change.
Do you, I mean, I realize that you guys can only speak for yourselves, but do you feel like the local political system is open to having more people of diverse backgrounds running?
I know I do have a cousin. I don't know if y'all know Maotosi. He is my blood related cousin, first cousin, and he was running for was it the school board or the mayor? I think was 2 or 3 years ago. So that was the first face of a Polynesian, of a Samoan individual to run for a seat, for. So I think what Robin was saying, that we need to come out. We don't just sit in our, fancy seat and it's warm and comfortable and just look out in a circle and see things that needs to be done, but we cannot reach out there because we're not getting out, to, even if, I think that it's kind of hard for us that come from little places to come to this big, huge place and run for a seat, and have people look at us, who is this young, from a little island? What does he or she knows, about this big place? But not knowing that we might have something important in through our history of experiences, that it might help the city, it might help the state, And I think, going back to your suggestion, as Robin said, come out. I think it's time for us, our diversity community in Anchorage. We need to come out and we need to work, and we need to work together, and with our city of Anchorage, or the state of Alaska, So I think that's how we could start.
So I'm also raising children in a bilingual, bicultural, biracial home, and my husband and I struggle with. Our kids are young, but we try really hard to, talk to them about, where they're from on both sides. And the problem that we've had is when they are put in a box, like however somebody does that, there's a lot of different ways that people do that, like asking my son if he's Chinese, things like that. And the problem that we have is that I feel like if I want him to run for office and represent diversity in 20 years, right now, how do I start that with him? How do I teach him to tell people where he's from and that he doesn't fit into this little box? And it's hard with a 3-year-old. I mean, I think it's hard enough for an adult to tell somebody, no, that's not who I am. So I'm interested to know how those of you that are raising children, like how do you do that? How do you help them with that?
It's interesting because, I have a 3-year-old too, and sometimes they say it's Mexican, basically. The people sometimes they think, oh, the Latin American people is Mexican. But, I said, yes, it's half and half. Mm-hmm. We are half and half, and we are fine with that. I mean, we are, this place is built for immigrants. This place, I think, has been growing, the immigrants making those big buildings, the immigrants just help to build this land too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not just basically just Mexicans, it's not just Colombians, it's just all immigrants. for different reasons we are in here. For different reasons we are continue to build this land.
And we're contributing to the
yes,
economy.
and the economy. And also, one thing it was telling about living in Alaska, we need to tell the people how we live in here in Alaska. We don't live in ice castles or nothing like that. We need to get out and tell them, hey, we are part of United States, and we are in here, and we live like that in here.
So teaching people back at home about your
Exactly.
life here as
yes,
well.
because I still have some friends from college, and like they ask me, so you guys have ice houses in there? Like, no. Well, we have one in Fairbanks, but it's just like a museum. No, exactly. We don't live in igloos.
It's the stereotypes a lot of people deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the listening audience who's just joining us, this is Community and Unity, and we're talking about immigration and integration. And I'd like to invite another community member to join the conversation.
Hi, I'm Diane DeSanto. I'm working with the Rasmussen Foundation now, and one of the things that I just wanted to talk about community engagement, and I would like to ask your help and suggestions. And I know you were talking about running for office, but we are supposed to be we have this great diverse community, but if you look at boards or commissions, you don't see this panel at all. So Rasmussen is really concerned about that. You know, they would like to see more of the diverse community, and so I've been talking to a number of people in the community, and I'm really interested to hear. I mean, it'd be great to run for office, and I totally support that, but we'd also like to see diversity on the boards and commissions. So can you give us some suggestions how to get diversity on these boards and commissions?
Yeah, I agree.
I think I was approached a couple of years ago by some of our friends that I met in some of the diversity and some of the groups that I'm in, and they wanted me to run for a seat in the East Side. And I said, I don't live on the East Side. I live on the South Side. So I'm not qualified to run for the East Side unless I move and live on Mountain View or area like that. But you know, I think, to me, as I was thinking about it at the time when they asked me, and I asked my husband, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of, inside of me, kind of afraid to be in front of this public exposure, and knowing about, a lot of, they will dig up everything, even if it's lies and stuff like that. They can make you look bad. And I'm like, I don't know. I really have to think really hard about this because, I wasn't educated up here in the United States. I was graduated in a small high school of, I think, 25 kids. So this is a small island, okay? So I've learned through books. We don't have television back then. So not many information about politics. I don't understand about all that stuff. So it's like it's like it's diving your head in and then, see if you can wake up or float up or something if you go through that. And that's kind of make me, look back and say, hey, maybe I'll just wait and see, maybe 5 years down the road, who knows, but that's my experience. As I'm from a small island. I don't know if I would be good for the seat. I don't know if I would do the job as better as somebody else that, even though that I'm out, in my community as a leader, that doesn't mean to me that I will be the answer to all the, the needs of my community if I take that seat. You know what I mean? So.
But I think the idea is, being on a board or a commission, you're less publicly exposed. You don't have to go through the whole election process.
But I don't think people, I don't even know a lot about boards and commissions.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's a lot of really easily accessible information about what the boards are, what are the commissions, and then if you talk about limited English proficiency, there's certainly zero information about that. And so I think to get more people involved, there needs to be way more information about what the possibilities are, and then doing outreach, like going to the community organizations and explaining what the responsibilities are and what the opportunities are. I mean, in engaging in our community and really making I think for me, what I get frustrated by is we all love to talk about how diverse our community is, right? I love it. And the ground truthing of that is so few, honestly, of the agencies within our state have made their services accessible, right? So we're not doing really as much as we need to be doing to making that diversity actually be reflected in how we provide services and who's providing those services and then who's running the agencies that are providing those services.
Well, and then so does part of the problem go back to what Marie was talking about earlier, is that you have information out there and it's not put in context and the background's not put in there. And so like it's out there but nobody understands how all the pieces fit together.
True. It's definitely true with going back to how there's no representation, boards or commission, or in just the positions of power in government or in the business world. There definitely are other people of color who are qualified, but maybe we have to look at how we're filling those positions, because sometimes executive appointments in government, they don't really have to search far and wide. They just pick whoever's next, leaving out the opportunity for people of color to even put their name in the hat for those positions. But there definitely are. So we need to explore new ways of filling those positions. And I also want to say that I guess with diversity, sometimes we just overuse diversity. That what does that really mean? I mean, it's just bottom line, we're all different. Why are we all talking about how we're how we are different? It's just the way it is. And how do we celebrate that differences? But we need to understand more how we're different. And I say that because how do you invite more people into boards and commissions and in government? I think I'd like people to understand that coming to a different country, I mean, you see it glamorized that, oh yeah, let's live in another country. It's exotic, it's exciting. As a 16-year-old coming here, I don't want to leave my friends. It was just not a good time in my life. I didn't want to be here. And so people, I think, miss that. It's always, you always have that home. Philippines I've been here longer than I've lived there. But I guess people have to understand it's hard to adapt to a new home, because like you're here. You're no longer have a life in the Philippines. You have to live here because this is where your job is. So that's maybe why some people hesitate to venture out. They stay in their communities where it's safe, where they know people, where they see people who look like them, who talk like them, and who understand them. And that's a lot. I think until you recognize it, it's a feeling that people may not really truly understand. But we need to do outreach like Robin said. I think whatever we're doing now maybe is not working because we still don't see a good representation of people of color. So maybe it's time to do something different. Outreach by going into where they are, because sometimes we hesitate to come out. It's just like going to a strange place. And there's also a Filipino value where we're here, you may call it assertive, but that goes against the humility that Filipinos value so much. It's like you don't speak unless you're invited. So you kind of want to invite them, go to them and say, it's okay to come to this strange venue, like maybe here. It's okay, come here. There's some of us that come here. And so those things, to come to where we are. I know some people may not like that. It's like, why? They come here, they want to live here, they should come to us.
So speaking of inviting people
Yeah.
to join the conversation.
Hi, I'm Vivian Meldy, and I've been in Alaska since 1966. I'm a child of a Filipino mother. My parents met during World War II and in Manila, and I was born in Guam, but I've been in Alaska since '66. And one of the ways I've found to serve on boards and actually to I've found the power of theater, and I'm very active in the theater. And some of the times when I first started You know, I was either playing a whore, I was playing a waitress, or a maid. And I have made it my personal goal to work on plays and work on theater productions and performance pieces that will be inclusive and multicultural, multi-ethnic pieces that really bring new audiences to the theater. I mean, when I was a dancer, I started as a dancer, but one of the things my dad used to say before I would go on stage, because I was with the ballet then, was that I'm going to look for my spot on the stage because I was the only little brown face on the stage. Well, it's not that way anymore. It's definitely changed. You know, when kids are in shows and everything. So I ended up working on the State Arts Council under the Knowles administration, and that I think was, you know, an opportunity to serve on a state board. And you know, my choice is to work through the arts, and it's a very powerful thing because it can reach many in many different ways. The arts can reach many cultures and be very inclusive. So that's my 2 cents.
It sounds like you were doing what people were talking about earlier in terms of getting out of the box that
Yes.
the rest of society is trying to put you in.
Exactly. And now I'm directing and doing, you know, productions. And Shirley May and I did a Centennial project, and we purposefully wanted to focus on immigrants who had come to Alaska and what their story was. Lucy was one of our featured people in our production. So that was something we definitely made the decision to do because we knew they were lesser known stories, but there were stories, and they gave tremendous contributions to the growth of Anchorage.
And I feel like there's so many conversations about how to get people who've been shoved into these boxes into the box. How do we? I guess I'm wondering, how do we open that box up, not just so people of color aren't shoved into these particular roles, but also so that everyone is actually interacting and engaging? I mean, yeah.
It's hard. I think events like the one Vivian said, it's really sharing people's stories. That I think that's how we connect. Bottom line, once you know something personal, where somebody came from, you know, because maybe we have a lot of events where there's really a lot of other things going on, singing or dancing, but we really leave away not knowing anything about the person you're next to. Where did they come from? Tell me about your life, what your life is like. I think we need to encourage more discussion like that and really trying to understand the person. It's, you know, something where we come from. I think, and it doesn't matter what country you're from, it's just understanding people as people. That bottom line is we all have just this shared experiences of just how we all have our struggles, but just our commonality, finding that. And I wanted to add too, so those kinds of events, I think, for me, it's more meaningful. At least know what led me here, why am I here, and the same for whoever I'm speaking with. I'd like to know what you are. I think that's what makes it more of a rich experience for everybody, then we truly understand each other.
Do you feel comfortable when people ask you direct questions? Like, what's your background? Who are you?
I hope people would ask me more, because I think right now we're kind of afraid of how to ask that.
Yeah.
It's
with that.
But I think if your intention is good and if you don't mind being corrected, that, you know, and I think people just needs to be more comfortable asking. And, you know, where are you from? I'm from the Philippines. And I don't mind answering that. Tell me about your background. I guess I would like people to watch their assumptions, because sometimes you don't even know you have it. So you ask questions, and a quick story. I was at work and I was at the location where there were different events going on. There were different rooms, and there was a catering staff also for another group that was presenting. And actually I was wearing the same thing. And this same outfit. And so this lady I was talking to, like, because there's different events going on, I was there for work.
We have about a minute left.
Right, oh, and the lady said, oh, do you work for the caterer? With all the other events going in there with different businesses going on. So check your assumptions and I encourage meaningful conversation.
All right, we have time for 20 seconds for one last comment from the audience.
Well, actually, I was born and raised here in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm actually a product of immigrant parents, and I've been to the struggles. And then when I was growing up here in Anchorage, Alaska, going to elementary, junior high, and high school, when I was growing up, they will ask, "Are you Chinese or Japanese?" I'm neither of them. I'm Korean. So they say, "Where is that?" I was like, "Oh, it's right between Korea, China, and Japan. It's right in there." So
thank you for sharing that experience, and thank you all very much for joining us. This has been Community and Unity in Alaska public media production. We have with us Lucy Hansen, Robin Bronin, Marie Husa, and Dulce Whitehead. Thank you all for joining us very much.